I know most of you are pretty familiar with most of the people in this room, but I'm going to go ahead and still introduce myself. I'm Jeanette Wynn, Superintendent of Karnes City ISD. And with us tonight, we have a few people who are going to be available to ask any questions to as we move along the presentation, and you're welcome to ask questions afterwards as well. We do have Mr. Wayne Block, who is our business manager, and we have Kelly Block, who's our technology director, who was instrumental in getting all of this set up for us tonight, and also helped us with a video presentation we're going to show in a moment. We have Mr. Jeff Allen, who's our maintenance director, and we have Mr. Todd Brendelin, who is with Lamar Womack and Associates, who assisted us, spent a lot of time with us as we asked him to maybe show some renderings, some ways that we thought might be something that would be useful to us. So he's given us a lot of advice and suggestions and listened to a lot of what we had to say. I also have Mr. Cletus Bianchi. Cletus was one of the members of our facility advisory committee that started meeting in September. And Cletus is going to do the bulk of our presentation, so I'm going to turn it over to Cletus.
Thank you. You should wait until I'm done before you clap. I'm really excited to see the students here. Y'all are here because you're really interested in the project, right? It's not about special credit or anything like that. That's encouraging for our future. So, Team Block really put together a great video presentation that covers a lot of kind of the nitty-gritty detail. And it's just a few minutes long. We're going to play that first, and it's going to answer a lot of the specific questions, especially about the taxation. And then we'll get into what the committee went through, the decision-making process, and then the proposal that is before the voters. So I will step out of the way.
Here is Karnes City ISD Finance Bonds, the Eagleford Shale. In the spring of 2006, the Texas legislature passed House Bill 1 in an attempt to reduce property taxes and equalize state funding for all school districts. The bill required each school district to lower its tax rate by a third and then increase state aid to make up the difference. Unfortunately, House Bill 1 capped a combination of local and state revenues at a fixed funding level. This means that ultimately, even as property taxes generate more money for the district, KCISD's total revenue per student will not be increased relative to other Texas schools. Due to the state's recapture laws, the KCISD operating or year-to-year budget will not benefit from these land values, but will be held to a revenue formula that will keep KCISD funded in the bottom 14% of all schools in the state over time. KCISD must send about $25 million to the state of Texas in recapture funds this school year, while our operating budget is about $10.4 million. Despite increasing KCISD land values from $219 million in 2009 to $4.3 billion in 2013, the Eagleford Shale oil boom in Karnes County is ultimately not projected to help the KCISD operating budget. It can, however, help fund needed bond projects. With all the oil field activity, the KCISD student population is expanding, while many facilities are aging and requiring significant attention. So in August of 2013, the board appointed a committee to address three primary facility concerns in the district. One, a growing student population with immediate effects at the elementary. At the 2012-2013 rate of student growth, Rodriguez Sides Elementary will be at maximum capacity in 5 years, the high school in 9 years, and Karnes City Junior High in 10 years. A high school that we have that was built in 1960 is experiencing age-appropriate structural concerns and will soon need a new roof, a new ceiling, new electrical replacements, and is very inefficient to air condition, all costing an estimated $15 million to keep an aging building going. A junior high with maintenance problems that will require attention to remain a stable building in the future. After months of meetings and discussions, the committee recommended and the board unanimously approved a May 10, 2014 bond election to build a new pre-K through second grade campus, to provide repairs and additional classrooms at the junior high, and build a new high school campus in phases. This $45 million bond will be paid for with tax collections that are not subject to recapture. So all the funds raised for this debt service will remain in KCISD to finance these capital improvements. 73.99%, or $33,295,000 of the bond, will be paid for by all field companies working in KCISD, while only 0.67, or less than 1% of the bond, will be funded by single-family residences. School taxes for those over 65 are frozen on their homestead plus 20 acres, so they will see no tax increase from the bond issue on this property. This will be a short 10-year bond that will cost a $50,000 homeowner about $5 a month to build 2 new schools and refurbish another. For more details about the bond election, please see the informational brochure on the KCISD website, or obtain a brochure at the KCISD Administration Building or at multiple businesses throughout the district. The election is May 10th, 2014, and early election begins April the 28th, 2014. Please vote. Regardless of the outcome, Karnes City ISD administrators and board will continue to manage the district's finances in a fiscally responsible manner to maximize the education possible with the funds available.
So can y'all hear me okay if I don't hold this? No? You can't? You can? Okay. All right. I'll use it.
So that is on the website. So if you had a neighbor that couldn't make it this evening or anything, I find that very informative, and they've essentially condensed a lot of what I'm going to speak about tonight into this easy to review video. So it's right there on the website. It's easy to find, or if you want to go back and reference it, it's there. So what I'm going to discuss this evening is the process. How did we get to $45 million to present to the school board to put in front of the voters? The committee we've already discussed met for 6 months from September through February. There were 18, we had teachers, contractors, business owners, and more than half of them were actually KCISD graduates. They went to Karnes City High School. The process we went through, the first probably meeting and a half was really a lot of background information like you just received here, except we had architects and bond brokers and people like that coming in explaining it to us before we went into the decision-making process. So let's talk a little bit about the macro view. Eagle Ford Shale, everybody's heard about it. There's the numbers. It's almost a 20% increase in the last 4 years. Appraisals have gone up dramatically, significantly. So now, next slide. Currently, we're paying taxes that are called M&O taxes, and this was more than half of our first meeting. You board members, I'm sorry, this is going to bore you, but so maintenance and operation is how we maintain and operate the school district, and you saw the number that the state said that our students are allotted to receive. Above that number, that money goes to other districts that need it. So for the first time, I guess this year, I think is the first year that we're actually sending money back, over $20 million. So over double our annual budget we are sending to the state of Texas. Set in 2006 now, the INS, or interest and sinking fund tax rate, is a voter-approved tax rate on property values in the school district, and anything that it is spent on stays in this district. The best analogy is Austin can't come pick up our buildings and take them back up there. So if the voters approve an INS tax, that money is specifically for projects within the school district, and that's why the district voters get to vote on it. So this gets into things if you have questions, but there are maximum rates. Go ahead, next one. And we are subject to Chapter 41 recapture, but everybody refers to it as Robin Hood. So we are on the other side of Robin Hood now. We are sending money out of the district to the state to be redistributed. This pretty much covers everything I just went through, the collected for repayment of debt, and and we'll talk a little bit about the kind of bond we wanted to do. The key thing is these funds, the state doesn't get their fingers on them. So that's what you have to remember when the election comes up. So, another part of the macro view, the environment that we are in, is that we are at or near historically low interest rates. So this bond, it's difficult to say what exactly our interest rate will be, because if it's approved, the bonds probably won't sell until August or maybe September. A lot of things can happen between now and then. The projection is at or below 3% interest rate, which is really low. I mean, I remember when I used to buy some bonds and I was struggling to get 5%, and that's just doesn't happen anymore. So the cost of the debt, the cost that we will have to pay the people that we borrow the money from, is at or near the lowest, certainly more than a lifetime, it may be in a millennium. So let's talk a little bit about the current conditions. So we kind of have the big macro view. That was the environment. And then we started going down individually, what is the district facing? The increasing enrollments, the little movie explained it fairly clearly, and the burden that the campuses currently have. Of course, the elementary campus has 7 grades, I guess. And then they move into 3 grades in the junior high and 4 grades in the high school. So with all this population increase at the elementary, it's going to start pushing up through the school district, through the secondary campuses, junior high and high school. So that's why the timing is also critical on this. At Roger East Sides, we have kids in classrooms that are across the street that have to cross the street to go to the cafeteria and the gymnasium. The junior high school has had to go to 2 lunch periods now. I know my daughter's thrilled about eating lunch at 10:45 in the morning. So we are already there as far as having space issues. Yeah, okay. Next one there. So no, you're fine. You're fine. I've got a couple of more bullet points. That's fine, because that's the next one. The buildings are not in danger of falling down if we don't vote for this. It's not, that's not what we're talking about right now. But what we are dealing with, and I love the term, is age-appropriate concerns, which I can relate to being almost as old as the high school is. So we have looked at remodeling. That was one of the first things we looked at. The bottom line is the expenditures for remodeling, modernizing, and enlarging the existing facilities, especially at the high school, cost more than half of what a new structure would be, and we were still going to have a 50-year-old and aging high school. In fact, it was closer to 60%. So when we were going through these considerations, remodel was one of the first things we looked at. Sean O'Brien was on the committee, he's the contractor, and Todd went through a number of the iterations of what we might need to do. Some of the maintenance concerns with the junior high, again, those are things that are coming anyway. Whether this bond passes or not, eventually the school district is going to have to deal with some of these issues. So when we get to the drawings, you're going to see that student safety and campus security were primary concerns of everyone on the committee. Controlled access, ingress and egress from the buildings. It's more open now. The designs we come up with, essentially a visitor or a student or a parent or whomever enters through a controlled access point, and specifically with the design that we have currently for the junior high and high school, the secondary campuses, a student can get from one end of the junior high to the other end of the high school and never leave the building. So we tried to focus, and Lamar Womack was great about incorporating that in, as well as traffic concerns. And when we show you the drawings, we'll show you that we're trying to do some things about avoiding having all the traffic that circles the campus and things like that, while still recognizing that you've got to drop your kids off and pick your kids up and things like that. So we really tried to work on traffic flow considerations without yet doing a traffic study, which I'll discuss in a moment. And then finally, we didn't want kids in portable buildings for a year while we were building. We didn't want jackhammers next to classrooms while the teachers are trying to instruct. So much of the process that you're about to see, especially the secondary classes, were done in phases or in separate properties, specifically to avoid those kinds of interruptions. In a perfect world, the timeline will lay out where the new facilities are open on, when the new school year starts. Don't know whether that'll happen or not, but the key goal is school goes on. The building is going on in the back or across the street or whatever, but school is still going on and the teachers aren't dealing with the construction issues and things like that. There will be inconveniences because of equipment and vehicles and such as that, but the actual students sitting in a classroom getting an education, we really focused on. We don't want that interrupted. Okay, so let's look at some pictures. And do you want to do the blow up thing now on this? This is a new slide, so oh, okay. So she's going to be able to, we'll start with the elementary, or we'll start, it doesn't matter to me. Let's do the elementary first. Okay, so now I can play with the laser pointer. Okay, so for reference, here's our Roger East Side's right here. Here's the little circle drive where everybody drops them off. Here's the blue building that has 5th grade and pre-K now? All of 5th grade is there. And what you don't see is over here that's the pre-K, is that right? Which is over across the street. This is Broadway over here. So we also have Mr. Beaver on our committee. He works for the city and pointed out to us that there's a main sewer trunk line that runs right through here, because the first suggestion was, well, why don't we just go this way? I mean, it's right there. That's a big infrastructure issue that we dealt with. I mean, he was sitting there and he said, we can't. So we were able to move on to the next option. So essentially what we've come up with is North Elementary for some of you long-term KC ISD students. Let me start with a caveat. This is a concept. We needed to count how much space we needed, how much space we had. So I'm not going to count classrooms in here, but this is an architect's idea of where we can put the expanded space we need. So if when it's built, the admin building, the admin office is over here and not here, that's because after it is approved, if it's approved, then there will be a committee that gets together and nails down the exact design. But we needed to know approximately how much space and then how much per square foot so we could come up with a total cost to present to the board. So don't pin me down on why in the library over there and over there. This is a good guess, and there's a lot of thought that went into this, but this is not the final plan. So the way it is set up now, bus drop-off is set up over here on Broadway. We've got controlled access through the center of the building. The office is over here. The media center is actually the library. There's a smaller gymnasium. This campus is proposed to be for pre-K through 2nd grade, leaving the 3rd through 5th grade down over here at the existing campus. And there's a kitchen and cafeteria. So when I show you the high school, the food will still be prepared over at the high school as it is now and transported to one of the 2 cafeterias now. But what you have is you have your pre-K through 2nd grade, not having to trip across the street to the gym and to the cafeteria anymore. They're essentially contained inside this North Elementary campus that is set up here. This building will still be available for meetings or for office space for grant programs or things like that, so that's not going away. But the pre-K building is going to go away because there were some issues with its height, where it sat on the lot and trying to make everything else tie in and come up to its level and all. Even though we recently spent money on it, it just wasn't feasible to incorporate it into the new plan. So before I move on to the secondary campuses, this is a great time if you have any questions about the proposal we've come up with for the elementary school. While we've got the slide up, and we'll pull the slide up if you think of something later, but does anybody have any questions right now before I move on to the junior high and high school? Come on, I can't be that good. Terry.
Do you want to explain the flipping of the softball field
Sure.
there for people that got questions on that?
Right, I can do that. So currently the ball field sits over on this side, and that will end up being playground, and the proposal is to flip essentially home plate will be on the northwest corner instead of in the southeast corner when that happens. Other questions? Don't the students have to ask a question to get extra credit? We're going to run out of time. Okay, yes, we got that covered. Okay, so we'll move on to the secondary campus. Much more complicated. 2 campuses, and we really had to work on phases here. So I'm going to try to explain this as best I can, and if I lose you, just say stop and we'll start over. So it's in 5 phases. First thing to note, even though this is part of phase 2, this is second floor of a new high school that would sit back over here. So if you're wondering what this is back over here on the Mollix property, it's not. It's just the way we had to render it to put it on the drawing. So it's a 5-phase process. But phase 1 is, since we want to put a new high school back here, we got to do something with the tennis courts and the bus barn and the maintenance facility that's back here. So phase 1 involves moving the tennis courts down here where nothing grows. Good place to pave it and put tennis courts. And then moving the transportation and maintenance facilities over here to this is the very north end of the property. That's the existing north access. One of the nice things about this is now your buses don't have to come all the way through the campus. They can do a drop off and stay forward on the property. As I mentioned, control and access. This is a bus loop that we're proposing right here, but there's no room for traffic, for open traffic. You can have maintenance and deliveries and things that are approved traffic to go around the backside of the campus. But the actual traffic flow will involve going around over here into the maintenance facility. So we got to get rid of the old before we start the new. So that's phase 1 is moving those 2 items and then tearing down the existing stuff. So now phase 2 is a new high school. Square footage, do you know what off the top of your head? I'm looking up square footage right quick. New high school, 121,000 square feet. We're saving some at the old high school. I'll discuss that in a minute. So the new high school is 121,000 square feet. 2 stories, sits on top of this one over here. It does include a new gymnasium with more seating, but the existing gym and the junior high gym do not go away. One of the benefits of that is you can have 3 practices immediately after school instead of, for instance, the boys team having to wait until 5:30 or 6 to start their practice. Tournaments, you got 3 gyms that you can, and you know, maybe we get to host some playoff games or something like that. There's an expanded locker room for the girls now. The dining room is over here next to that, and the new kitchen sits right there. The library would sit above the dressing room, essentially. You move this over here. Here's the main entrance. This is a secondary and controlled entrance. The things that stay is still this locker room. The classrooms that were added in '98, I think it was, they were relatively recently added. The cafeteria is still there, but this will essentially become a junior high school cafeteria is what it will become. Because as you see, this hallway, all these hallways are linked. So again, from a student to get from this classroom to the cafeteria, they don't have to leave the building. They stay inside the structure. So that, the new high school is essentially phase 2. Phase 3 involves partial demolition because the old high school, so if this is the gym, and this is the walkway in the gym, the old tax office currently would sit about right there, and there's a wing that goes here, and a wing that goes here at the old high school. And we'll move those. Those will be gone. That's phase 3. It's really a demolition phase. Phase 4 would then be additional classrooms, either for the junior high or the high school, depending on where they're needed. But right here next to the junior high school, a new auditorium with more seating, seats that work, and fine arts is basically the band hall. Another nice thing is that the band hall, the way it's set up now, is it'll be right in between the two campuses and kind of be instead of being out here stuck on one far end of the campus. Let's see. And so that's phase 4, and then phase 5, we're going to leave the auditorium until the new auditorium's done. And then this will be removed, and when you're on 123 looking through, what you'll see, new auditorium, dressed up as much as the new committee, the building committee wants to dress it up. And then above it, you'll see a 2-story high school back there in the back. So, that one was complicated. There's got to be questions about that. I couldn't have done it that way. Trudy. So that's where we get into the traffic survey that I was thank you for bringing that up. Probably, we don't know, that'll involve a traffic survey and a traffic flow. We currently have a traffic signal right here that's the only one onto the property. So there may be, I'm going out here, I'm thinking there's probably going to be conversations with TxDOT and with the city. But yeah, that certainly opens up, when I did the presentation to the city council, Jimmy Lloyd and Charlie Mollick were asking questions about parking for football games and things like that. Will there be access to come around from this parking lot over here into here? And those are all important considerations. So I'm hoping one of those guys is on the committee that's approved to provide that input. It will be open, and I would think probably, some sort of parking or whether the parking wraps around or a traffic flow thing. So something along those lines, I would think. I don't want to suppose too much, but feasibly I would not be opposed to a traffic signal here and a traffic signal here. TxDOT may not allow that because it's a highway, but just for, especially in the morning and the afternoon with the buses coming in and parents and things like that. So that's one of those things that's out there that, just didn't want to spend the money on a traffic survey until we were sure we were moving forward with the program.
This is where the base 5 right there. Is that the concourse then?
That would be the concourse right there.
Concourse stays.
Concourse stays, yes. Extra credit for Aubrey. The front door, yes. These windows would also face out towards the highway. So this would be the main entrance. Proposing student parking over here, with one of the principals waiting to greet you every morning when you walk in and when you walk out. So facing, yes, there will be some places, classrooms that face that way, and there'll be there'll be windows all the way around the thing. It's essentially kind of the way it's laid out. There are some central classrooms, but essentially it'll face to be able to see the direction.
So how long do you anticipate 5 phases will take?
Okay, here's a best guess. You're probably going to quote me on this, aren't you? Okay, so timing-wise, if the voters approve it in May, the first bond probably would not be sold until August. That's when the bond underwriters work their magic and they package it and they find somebody to buy it and all that sort of stuff. So it doesn't get funded until August or September. Meanwhile, back here, a committee is formed, and you call it a building committee, or I don't know. I'm not going to be on that committee. There's at least one slot available to work on the plans and things like that. So I don't know whether this is optimistic or not, but the proposal is to, since it's on 2 campuses, you could really, whether it's the same contractor or different contractors, it's all going to go out for bid, but they could be going on concurrently. They could be working on the elementary while they're working on this campus. Todd has this broken down in phases, but it looks like, including demolition, it's the class of 18 that gets to graduate from the new high school.
Well, actually, look at phase 2.
High school
Phase 2.
It's
Oh, that's
phase 2
right.
completion. That's when they'll be in the new school.
Phase 2 completion, so that moves it up to the class of 17 as to graduate from junior high school. And potentially, if it doesn't rain, which is as likely as anything, we're not going to say the class of 16. That's probably not going to happen. And you know, there's the bid process. So the building committee comes up with what they want. You know, what color they want it, and all that fancy pretty stuff. And then you have to put it out for bids, and then the bids come back, and then the bids are reviewed, and the board votes to approve those sorts of things. And then it rains when you're pouring the foundation, and that slows you down a week. So, but it would be cool if the class of 2017 could. And then, so yeah, the class of 2019 might actually graduate indoors in the new auditorium. It might, we'll see. Kind of fun being outside. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Parent pickup at the junior high.
Parent pickup at the junior high.
That'll be part of the traffic flow study.
Yeah, that'll be part of the traffic flow study. I don't know. I don't know. The potential is to have it over here because we're proposing perhaps 2 entrances, you know, something that goes around the entrance, potentially. Or if the buses don't pick up here, the buses are actually picking up both schools here or here.
And that
then
was
it
one
could
of the
easily
things that
be-
was discussed, was that
Yeah,
you could pick up, since they're all together, you could pick up, at one location, either in front of the high school where it says 62 spaces there, and then you would have the front drive for parent drop off for the junior high, and you would have very little flow going back to the back except for students on the back side. But that's would depend upon the traffic study.
Right, if the bond election passes, then one of the first things we would do is have a traffic flow study done, so some experts can help us with the best, what's most feasible.
Anything else about the drawings? Yes, ma'am.
Your drawing, you're saying you're going to put gym on the bottom floor and a gym on top of that?
No, so the gymnasium, this little notch right here, that little notch fits in right there. Nothing on top of the gym. That right there will be right here. So this open area right here will actually be the top layer of the gymnasium. Didn't explain that well. Edmund's on it. You got it. You get your extra credit. Any other questions about the drawings? And then I'll tell you how we came up with the magic numbers that we are proposing. Okay. So, cost information. I don't think you have a slide on this. No, you don't. Okay. So here's some cost information. We had to come up with a proposed drawing to get the number of square feet we needed, and then the dollars per square feet to come up with some sort of dollar figure to present to the board, for the board to present to the voters. So classrooms run between $170 and $200 a square foot, which I thought originally was kind of high until I thought about, you know, some of the people I know that are building houses for that much in Austin and places like that. Auditorium runs more. You've got electronics and lights and big spans and things like that. Gymnasiums run more than that also. One of the considerations is technology upgrades. One of the first parts of phase 1 is getting the technology set up, specifically the fiber optic, so that the brains are running when the new school opens. And you know, that's like 1.6 million of the total bond package. But the modernization and the technology is one of the primary arguments for doing something like this, because one of the issues with the older building is how do you get the technology into this old building to move forward into the 21st century. So the technology is expensive but important. And the furnishings are included in the amount. I don't know how fancy they are, but you know, the furnishings are included in there. So now you can go, well, let me do the bond structure first. So we picked, after our conversation with Southwest Securities, the committee voted to go with a shorter term bond, only a 10-year bond, with an early call provision so that while the money is coming in now, we can take care of it. We want to take care of the debt burden as quickly as possible. If we can do it in less than 10 years and pay it off early, that's even better for the school district, and the IMS tax goes away, and it's done and it's taken care of.
Just let them know what a call is.
Oh, good point. So a call provision is at some point in time, say 5 years, on a 10-year bond, we can call the bonds because we have enough revenue in or whatever. We say, we're paying you off. You know, you people who bought these bonds, you bought $1 billion worth of bonds, we've been giving you 2.5% interest on as of 2000 and whatever that 5 years from now, can't do the math, sorry. We're calling them and our debt is satisfied and we own it free and clear. There are no longer any lien holders against it. And then it can carry forward, can it? I mean, at any time after the call provision, you can call it. So if it takes 6.5 years, 7 years, if there's some windfall of taxes, if appraisals keep going up and we take in more money, there's no point in carrying that debt any longer than necessary. The other concern was, when is the Eagle Board going to go away? When are the appraisals going to go down? Which they will eventually, whether it's 7 years or 70 years. And we didn't want the district hung out, 25 years from now or 22 years from now when property values are somewhere back where they were before and we're still carrying this larger debt load. So we opted to go with a shorter term than I think even some of the other districts in the county. The tax rate is 12 cents per hundred. Yeah, here we go. So this was one of the things we were looking at originally. At this point, we weren't even certain how much the whole project was going to cost, so we were just kind of plugging in numbers. Ultimately, we settled for the bottom figure, which is a 12.05% tax rate. So if your home is worth $100,000, that's a $50,000. So if your home is worth $100,000, that's a $120 increase in your property taxes on that home. About $10 a month is about how it breaks down. Of course, the over 65 exemption. The video explained it, but if you are over the age of 65, your homestead plus 20 acres is tax exempt. It will not bear the burden of this tax. Important for some of you seasoned citizens to know that. Okay, now who pays for it? And the video did a nice job of explaining this, but this little number, this number over here is the one that just blew me away. So basically what this number right here is telling you is that all of us who live in houses in the Karnes City Independent School District, when we pay taxes on this bond, our total, everybody who lives in a house, we're going to spend $300,000 per month. It's less than 1% of the appraised values. So I'm not sure that buys the doors. I don't know. That's not a lot of money though. The bulk of it is right here. The people who weren't here before, they're now here, and we're basically asking them to pay for our new facilities. Farm and ranch is 2%. Commercial, the businesses, other businesses, which is basically other businesses. So this is essentially who pays for it. And remember, this doesn't include over 65 people. They're not included in that here. So that's after all the exemptions that are available. So the actual number is 0.67% of the appraised values are residences, single-family homesteads. There it is. And then, so, no, that's fine. That's just it in a chart form. And then here's, I'm as anti-tax as anybody is. I don't like to pay more taxes than I have to, but the bottom line is the tax rate that this would incur is lower than it was back in 2006. The reason for that is we didn't have near the appraisal values that we had. And that tax rate there, back in 2006, we were still getting money from the state. We still weren't making enough money to cover our M&O expenditures. So, any questions about the bond itself, or why we proposed it, how we structured it, or how much it's going to cost? Because that's really what it all boils down to. I really wanted you to understand how we came to the $45 million number. It wasn't just something we pulled out of a hat. As you saw in that one slide, we covered, and we were at 28 to almost 30 million on our remodels that we were looking at. And then, you know, that's when we said, wow, that's a lot of money. Let's look at what new would be. And we ended up going this way. So any questions about that I can answer for you?
I guess.
It's the movie. They didn't even need me after the movie. So essentially, I was on the committee. I've been going out in the community. I've written a column about it. I'm obviously an advocate for seeing this passed. I just think the timing is perfect for this. We've got high appraisal values. We've got really low debt service. And I really don't know, I mean, we're not even talking about a once in a lifetime opportunity. This could feasibly be like a once in 100-year opportunity for us to get this place set up for the next generations of students. They're getting good educations, great educations right now, but the education has obviously changed even in the last 10 years, what it's doing, and we just want to see them prepared when they leave here for what they're facing out there. One of the things we kind of laughed about is Miss Lissy told me that this high school opened on January 3rd, 1961, and the students had to carry their books into the classroom, and what we were thinking about was what did the high school cars look like in the parking lot? Because you know they weren't brand new cars. You know, they were like 1945 Buicks and stuff. And what are the cars going to look like 50 years from now in this parking lot? There may be no parking, Trini. I mean, they may all be hovercraft things that park on the roof or something. You know, I mean, who knows? But that's what we really kind of put Shelly on the spot at the last meeting about. Okay, technology. What is it going to need in 20 years? And she said, well, I don't know what it's going to need 2 years from now. You know, there's no way to know, but we just want to build it so it's ready for that. As ready as it can be. Questions? So there's only 2 extra credit students. Anyway, really. I certainly appreciate you coming. Yes, please, you can come up and ask questions, and if you want to look at, and we can put the drawings back up on the screen if you want to come. And Julie, I'm going to explain to you how a gym is not going to be in the way of the classroom. Yes, Ms. Gomez. I'm going to be texting like a fiend that Saturday.
I mean, you can have like big sites, you can put anywhere. A lot of people don't even read the paper.
Really? That's on you. That's why my column doesn't receive much funding. I don't know. The school kind of has its hands tied. The school can do informational things like we're doing tonight. That last part was my editorial comment. Jeanette couldn't get up and say that. We just have to go out and talk to people. I've been to the city council, I've talked to the Rotary Club, I've talked to the Young Progressives. You know, if somebody has a question and they can't get a hold of me or Jeanette, send them to the website because it's right there on the front part of the website. They can click and see that video, and I'm more than happy to talk to them if they need, if they want more information. I'm happy to do that.
Can you put anything on our marquee?
I think probably just the election. Is that on the marquee?
We can just put the election information.
So we can put, early voting is April 8th through May 6th and things like that, but you can't say, go vote yes or don't vote. Vote early, vote often. So it that's where it falls on us. And, I've been out there and I've been asking people, okay, what don't you like about it? The T-ball field. I mean, I'll be the first one to stand up and admit, there's parents concerned about the T-ball field. And I am too, because my mom's name is on it. That matters a lot to me. But I know that she would vote for this, and then we'd figure out something to do with the T-ball field is what we would do too. So, that's, we can figure that out. We can sort that out with the city or something. It's too much. Well, I don't know. We tried really hard to keep it tight, to keep it short, because we didn't. Everybody on the committee is going to pay these taxes too, and we didn't want to just throw the money around, so we really tried to keep it tight. So if you hear negative things, I'm more than happy. again, if they're not happy with where the band hall is, we can't fix that yet, but, on May 11th, we can start working on something like that.
Anything else?
So please feel free to come down. Early voting is April 28th through May 6th. Starts Monday. There you go, starts Monday. And election day is Saturday, May 10th. So get out. Like I say, vote early, vote often.
Awesome.